Hello everyone and welcome back to another Canadian Politics Explained video. And in today's video, we're going to be going over Canada's vaccine rollout as of April 6th, 2021. So, if I go over here and scroll down and add Canada to all of these data sets. So, let me just do that quickly. Okay, so as you can see here, I've added 7 countries to the list. Canada, the US, France, Germany, Japan, Italy, and the UK. So if I go here, the UK consistently has the highest per capita amount of first doses administered, meaning that they haven't vaccinated each person fully, but they have inoculated many people with the first dose, about 47% of its population as of today. But as you can see, it is kind of leveling off this chart, as they're spreading their doses out by about 3 months. So now all of these doses, when from January and February, they're acquiring their second doses. So the UK is having to use their doses that they're getting for the people who need their second dose instead of giving more people their first dose. The US hasn't adopted this strategy. They've kept it so you need 3 weeks in between each dose, no matter what, and 4 weeks for Moderna. And obviously Johnson & Johnson doesn't require a second dose. But this is why it looks more consistent, and it has been increasing pretty steadily since January. And now they're doing about 3 million doses a day, which is much faster than any other country is inoculating their population, at least in terms of raw numbers. So as you can see down here, you have France, Italy, Germany. So down here, as you can see, we have Canada, France, Italy, and Germany. And as you can see, they are all fairly similar. Canada started off much slower than the rest. As you can see, they were lagging in February when they did not get many deliveries of vaccines. But Canada picked up the pace and is now ahead of both all of France, Italy, and Germany. And right now, we've inoculated about 15.5% of our population with at least 1 dose, while the EU is widely seen as having a disastrous and faltering vaccine rollout that's still under pressure and is not doing very well compared to the rest of the world. And this has seen Canada pull ahead in the race. It's not a race. Obviously, we need to inoculate everyone in these countries in order for the entire world to be safe. But Canada has been able to speed up its vaccine rollout faster than these countries have because of more doses arriving from overseas manufacturers. So if I go over here to this article, it's clear that the Liberal government is trying to capitalize on this increased delivery of vaccines to the provinces, because recently Premier Doug Ford blamed the federal government for the slow vaccine rollout in Ontario. And if I go here, as you can see, Ontario has about 17.7%, or 17,000 doses per 100,000 people. And in order to fully inoculate everyone, assuming that everyone needs a 2-dose vaccine, you need 200,000 per 100,000 people, obviously. But Ontario, as you can see here, 17,000 doses per 100,000 people. This is fairly average, but it's still slower than a lot of the more developed countries in the world. And Doug Ford has attempted to blame this on the Liberal government, but the Liberal government, the federal government, is trying to paint this as a success story for Canadians, especially right now, as they're delivering more and more doses to the provinces, and despite the efforts of the opposition parties to say that their rollout was a failure, which in many ways, there are many ways it could have improved, but as of right now, they are increasing deliveries to provinces, and the Liberal government will definitely try to capitalize on this, especially with an election looking more and more likely to happen this year. So if I go back here and scroll down a little bit here, this is the daily doses. So obviously there's going to be a dip before or on Easter in Western countries. So I'm just going to go back before Easter, which is about here. I'll just do April 2nd. So if I look at this, the US has the most doses administered per 100,000 people, even outpacing the UK. Canada is 3rd right now on this chart. But similar story to the first chart, they used to be below all of the G7 countries except for Japan, who hasn't really started their rollout in daily doses. But right now, they're administering about 0.47 doses per 100,000 per 100 people every day. This is an increase, obviously, and this is largely due to increased deliveries, as I've already mentioned, from overseas. And obviously, provinces are opening eligibility to more and more people. But with the AstraZeneca vaccine having so many issues with blood clotting, they don't really know if it's linked to blood clotting yet, or how much of a link there is. But it's still a little bit questionable about whether it should be used in people under 55. So that could slow down the rollout in Canada and European countries, including the UK. But the US will not get slowed down by this, as they do not use the AstraZeneca vaccine as of yet. So down here, if I look at a map, as you can see, Canada has administered about 17.37% of its population in doses. So that doesn't mean that 17.37% of the population is fully inoculated. All that means is that that's how many doses there are per 100 people. It is worth noting that Canada has switched to, or most of Canada has switched to spacing out their doses by 4 months, which means that a lot of people will have their first doses, but not their second doses, administered in the coming months. But then, and the aim of this is just to make people have at least some level of immunity so they can end the pandemic faster. However, right now there aren't enough people being vaccinated in order for restrictions to be lifted safely, and just people to ignore the pandemic like it doesn't exist. As you can see here, Alberta and Ontario both have implemented more restrictions as their cases have climbed over the past few weeks. As you can see here, Ontario, you can see there's been a steep climb. It's like a U shape. We're in the middle. This is February to March, early March. The cases were pretty steady at around 1,000 per day, but now they're going up again, nearly to their peak of about 4,000, just under 4,000. And in Alberta, same story, except a little bit less dramatic of a U shape. But still, today they announced 952 cases, which obviously is a very high number, and one that needs to be addressed with a lockdown, according to the government of Jason Kenney. So basically, Alberta has reverted to its stage 1 reopening plan, which obviously will not be very popular with Albertans, as no one likes to go in and out of lockdown in the matter of basically just 1 week, because Jason Kenney is already unpopular there, and it's seen that he's been kind of hands off with the pandemic, and hasn't really helped long-term care homes or just the population of Alberta avoid lockdowns or prolonged lockdowns because of inaction or too little too late, basically. In Ontario, it's a similar story. Doug Ford has been criticized for his poor handling of long-term care homes. They have one of the worst long-term care home death rates in Canada and, frankly, in the world. But cases are on the rise again in Alberta. It's not in Alberta, in Ontario. And thus, Doug Ford has proposed, there's already increased restrictions, but they have not implemented a full lockdown or a partial lockdown in some areas of the province yet. Now, both of these moves are likely to negatively impact these conservative governments, both provincially and federally, as Doug Ford and Jason Kenney are frequently linked to the federal Conservative Party, and this will also hurt their chances in the upcoming elections, in the provincial elections coming up in 2022 and 2023. If I go to the poll tracker, it was recently updated today. With these new lockdowns, the Liberals have gained some support. Obviously, this is a little bit delayed, as a lot of these polls are taken before, or were taken before these new lockdowns came into place. But as you can see, the Liberals have gained support at the expense of the Greens and the NDP. But their seat projection has gone down slightly to 169, which is similar to what it was last time it was updated. But it's still less than a majority government, but obviously that could change, and it's very close to a majority government. So this hasn't really changed too much. So overall, the vaccine rollout in Canada has been speeding up recently with the new AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson approvals, and increased deliveries from Europe. Although a bill in the EU Parliament could block deliveries to other countries, but it's unlikely that Canada will be affected by this. As according to the health minister, they have received assurance from the EU that Canada will not be affected by this bill. In terms of how this will affect politics, it seems like this could only benefit the Liberals, as you can see here, the Liberals are already going up in the polls, and obviously they're going to be credited if the vaccine rollout does well, and they're going to be hurt if the vaccine rollout does not do well. As I can see in the national poll averages here, if I go to Canada, when the vaccine rollout was not going too well, they experienced a drop in the polls. This wasn't updated too frequently, but they definitely did not see increased support. They were polling at around 35%. But now that the vaccine rollout is going better, they've seen an increase in support to about 36%. Even though this is not a huge jump, it still shows that Canadians are more inclined to support the incumbent party if they are doing well in handling a crisis at the scale of COVID-19. In terms of how this will affect the Conservative Party, this depends on how they handle it. If they directly attack Trudeau on the rollout, that could hurt them if the rollout does well, because if it does well, they're just seen as playing politics and not caring about what the Canadian people really think. But if they criticize the Liberal government when the vaccine rollout is not going well, this could benefit them, as they're playing to the concerns of people who are dissatisfied with the vaccine rollout. Overall, if I just do a quick summary of how the vaccine rollout is going across the country, at the end, the territories are doing very well, obviously, as they have very small populations and therefore have been able to vaccinate 50 to 80% of their people with at least one dose. Ontario and the rest of the provinces have between 15 and 20% of doses, 15,000 to 20,000 doses per 100,000 people administered. Some highlights where the doses are higher are Saskatchewan, where there's about 19,000 per 100,000. Alberta, although starting off in the lead of all the other provinces, have fallen and now only have 16,500 doses per 100,000. All the other provinces are somewhere around 17,000, except for Manitoba, which is lower at around 15,000. Despite this, all of the provinces have moved to vaccinating, as I said before, with a 4-month gap in between, which will speed up the amount of first doses that are being given out. So that's all I have for you in this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow for another video.